Hello, everybody, and welcome to the fourth ever episode of Tuesday Night Takes. On today's episode, we will have Conor here for some NBA talk. So just for those of you for people that don't know you, Conor, could you introduce yourself and just kind of say a little bit about yourself?
All right. My name is Conor Vondre. I'm a friend of Greg's from back home. I currently go to Fordham University in New York City. And I'm basically all New York fan. So Knicks, Giants, Rangers, Yankees.
Had some pretty big disappointments in this year, huh?
Yes, I did. Not a lot of fun so far.
Alrighty. But
right,
just
so
to jump in.
Right in. Go ahead.
Exactly. Big news happening in the NBA. Huge news. Jimmy Butler is now a Philadelphia 76er. Robbie, take it away.
All right, so Jimmy Butler, we all knew a trade was going to come here at some point in the next year. It finally happened. He's on the Sixers. I still think the Sixers get a little bit better. They do lose some shooting, obviously, when you're going to lose Robert Covington and Dario Saric and add a guy like Jimmy Butler. But I can't see there's any way that the Sixers get worse by adding a four-time All-Star in Jimmy Butler. I mean, he's going to improve the defense. He's going to he's not going to slow down the offense really in any way. I think they're still going to score at a decent pace. It's just going to be curious to what they really do now and how they incorporate him into things. It's mostly on Brett Brown at this point if the Sixers go anywhere.
Yeah, I agree. I'll chime in last. What are your thoughts there, Conor?
I'm thinking it's a good move, especially because Dario Saric numbers are down so far this year. I know we have a small sample size, but if you're looking at his shooting percentage, he's down to 36% from 45 of last year.
Wow.
And his three-point shooting percentage is down to 30% from 39% last year.
Wow.
So, Butler's obviously an upgrade over both of them, and Saric, like I said, it's a small sample size so far, but he's not doing what he was last year, so it's not too bad to lose him.
Yeah, I agree with both of you, especially with you, Robbie. You can't get any worse by adding a four-time All-Star.
Yeah.
My thoughts are, even though Saric has shot poorly so far to start the year, he still has the ability to stretch the floor as a big man, which is, as we see in the NBA, it is so vital. And losing a guy who can stretch the floor and knock down three-pointers is a pretty big loss. And I do think the Philadelphia 76ers obviously got better, but I don't necessarily think that'll translate too well in the playoffs. Like, they will win more games this year, more games than they probably originally would have with Covington and Saric in the lineup. But I don't necessarily know if that'll lead to success in a 7-game series, because I don't know if they can win a 7-game series against a team like Milwaukee, Boston, or Toronto, because I
don't know about that, Greg. I do not know about that, because I think the reason you go out and get Jimmy Butler is to push you over the hump and win those games, because you're believing that Jimmy Butler can really kind of step in, be the leader that this young team needs to kind of push them over the edge of the Bucks and hopefully get them into the Eastern Conference Finals where one of the Raptors, Bucks, or Celtics would be waiting for them.
That's true, but look at it like this. So your starting lineup is now Fultz, J.J. Redick, Jimmy Butler, Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid. You don't really have a bench, okay? You have three guys who are ball-dominant players. Three of them, like Jimmy Butler, he can play off-ball, but Simmons isn't going to do anything off-ball, and neither is Fultz, because none of them can really shoot the ball.
Yeah. Markelle cannot shoot at all. I saw a free throw attempt of Markelle Fultz the other day, and it was one of the most atrocious things I've ever seen.
Yeah, so I'm just nervous that they're just going to lack the shooting that they need to beat a good defensive team and a good
But Greg, you were saying how
they
would have trouble going over Milwaukee, but Milwaukee, they don't have much shooting either, and now they have less All-Stars than the 76ers. I think maybe that what you said is true about Toronto or Boston, but Milwaukee, I mean, how much do they have?
That's a good point.
So I'm not saying
Malcolm Brogdon could shoot.
I'm not saying they'll beat Boston or Toronto, but I think it does elevate them above them.
That's a good point.
Milwaukee.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay, so
yeah. Go on, Rob.
So moving on to a different topic, other huge news, like I guess not necessarily huge news anymore, and I guess it's not even necessarily really news yet, but I think everybody is kind of in consensus here that Carmelo Anthony, his tenure with the Rockets is done. He has to move on, and I think it was you kind of had a very interesting take on this about Carmelo Anthony and what he should do moving to the future.
Yeah, when you think about it, Melo is an all-time great. I know he's one of the best scorers ever, and he's had tremendous success since he was drafted in 2003. But now he's just a journeyman, and he's just leaving stains on his legacy, and I think he should just call it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that is great because I mean I really don't see anywhere else he could go at this point. There's no teams that would really look to be adding a player like Carmelo Anthony. There's not much of a market for 30% ISO scorers anymore in the NBA. Yeah. There's just really nowhere for him to go.
The last 2 seasons, he's proved he cannot play off ball and he cannot be a catch and shoot player. So what he can really do is shoot a low percentage on isolation ball, and that doesn't fit in the NBA. It just doesn't anymore.
And if you're an all-time great, he's been on 5 teams now? The Nuggets, the Knicks.
Yeah, if you count the
OKC,
Hawks,
the Hawks, and now the Rockets.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's starting to become remembered for his OKC, his Houston, other than his Knicks and Nuggets days.
That's a great point. A lot of people are just when I think of Carmelo Anthony, I think of that 42% shooter, 30% from behind the arc guy that didn't fit well in OKC. I don't remember him as that great 28 points per game scorer he was in Denver and New York anymore. You just don't.
No.
So yeah, I agree.
Okay, but just kind of moving on from Carmelo, another interesting take that you had, Connor, was are the Bucks or the Nuggets legit? Do either of them have an actual shot at advancing, not necessarily past the Western or Eastern Conference Finals, but getting to the Western or Eastern Conference Finals?
I mean, the Nuggets, both squads are playing great ball. The Nuggets with Jokic are just insane. But the problem with them is without him, they're just not there. They just don't have the same team. And I mean, it's the same holds true with the Bucks. Is when Giannis is in, they're he's an otherworldly talent. But without him, they're just a 12 seed. Without him, so it's just it's hard to understand how far they'll go. I know the Nuggets have some scores, and so do the Bucks, but just without their number one guys when they're sitting on the bench, it's difficult for those guys.
Once those second units come, and they really don't have that floor general that Jokic and Giannis play for their certain teams.
Yeah, where they're just able to kind of take the ball and dominate for some stretches.
Especially Jokic had one of the most statistically perfect games in NBA history a few weeks ago, only missing one free throw and putting up a triple-double.
Mm-hmm. No turnovers, too. Ridiculous.
No turnovers.
That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just wondering what you guys think. If they're do they have a chance at their respective conferences finals?
I don't know. I think the Bucks are still a few years away from being serious contenders. Could they make it to the Eastern Conference Finals this year? Yeah, they'd have to beat a great team like Boston, Toronto, or now even Philly, which I don't know if they can, but they do have the potential to do it and make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. But I just think they're both, specifically the Bucks, a few pieces away. They still have young talent, especially in Giannis, who can only get better. What is he, 23 years old?
I think he's still around there.
Yeah, so he really is still a few years away from really hitting his prime, and I think once he hits his prime, the Bucks will be on a whole nother level.
And they still have a few players that have to hit their prime, like Malcolm Brogdon, and you know how I'm a big fan of Thon Maker.
Thon Maker.
He is along.
Shout out to his handles in 2K too.
Exactly.
But I guess my thoughts on the Bucks is they did beat the Warriors this past week. They didn't have Draymond, and Steph did get hurt. But it was kind of cool to see Giannis kind of uncovered, be able to kind of dismantle a defense. And along with that, it was Malcolm Brogdon making shots on the wing, and Eric Bledsoe's been playing great, as we said earlier.
You mean
but one of the pieces on
Drew Bledsoe.
Drew Bledsoe?
Drew Bledsoe.
I thought it was Eric Bledsoe. What?
It's Drew Bledsoe. You
It's
don't
not Drew
remember?
Bledsoe. No, I know Drew Bledsoe.
I'm messing
He's
with
a
you. It's a Scary Terry interview from last year.
But to continue with what I was saying, I think one of the biggest pieces on the Bucks is not Thon Maker, but Brook Lopez, where Brook Lopez is able to stretch the floor as a 5, which kind of makes it a unique offense where it allows Giannis to penetrate the defense better than he has in the past. And I mean, as you say, Giannis is only going to keep getting better. And I think there is a possibility this season with the pieces around him, even though they still are young, where they could make a trip to the Eastern Conference Finals and possibly beyond if Giannis is playing out of his mind.
Potentially, it could be there if Brogdon continues to hit shots like he has. I don't think he will. He's never been a great shooter. But potentially, if he does hit his shots, if Ilyasova, like I mentioned before, I'm still real high on him. If he can continue to hit his shots, if Brook Lopez can, shoot 35 to 40% from behind the arc, then they could be a team.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on to one of your players on the Celtics, he went home, or I guess not necessarily home, but he went back to Utah this past week. And when they announced his name, he got booed so hard by the Jazz fans, and that is Gordon Hayward. Gordon Hayward, I mean, he didn't seem like he took it really to heart, but it's got to kind of stink going back there and them not appreciating really any of the work that you did to put the franchise where it is now. Yes, it stinks that he left and went to the Celtics, but I don't necessarily see why he is getting booed so bad by the Jazz fans. I was kind of wondering what your take was on it, Greg, because he is a Celtic, and he did get booed quite poorly in Utah.
I was expecting him to get booed, but I'm surprised he didn't get a little bit more love because the Utah Jazz would not be relevant at the moment if it wasn't for Gordon Hayward and what he did there over the past 5 seasons. I mean, they haven't even been a relevant team since the John Stockton, Karl Malone days. They really fell off the face of the franchise. They couldn't sign any big names. I mean, they still haven't signed any big names, but they've missed out on big draft picks. They haven't, like I said, they haven't signed any big names. So I would expect there to be a little bit of love. I mean, like I said, I did expect Gordon Hayward to be booed there, but I was just shocked with how the fans, like I would expect the fans to be upset. He was an all-star, face of their franchise. He left them to join a contender. So there is definitely some hatred there, but surprised not any bit of love for Gordon Hayward.
You got to think, though, they have a new savior. It's not like they miss him at all. They have Donovan Mitchell now. They don't want Gordon Hayward back. So
not at all.
They want Donovan Mitchell, and that's who they have. So why would they give any love for a guy who left them?
True. Robbie?
That is true. Well, I mean, I do agree with what you guys are saying. Because I definitely understand why there were boos. I just didn't really expect so many, as you said, Greg, because it just kind of shocked me. But moving on to a different topic, something that I kind of wanted to bring up was how LeBron brought in Tyson Chandler, and then somehow he comes in and wins the game last night for the Lakers with a game-saving block on Trae Young, because I guess they're giving the ball to Trae Young to try and win those games. But it was kind of something interesting to see where now they have a little bit more of a post presence. I still think that the Lakers defensively are atrocious. I know I sent you a video, Greg, of LeBron playing defense where he just threw up his leg and tried to kick. I forget who it was, but he tried to kick the player with the ball, and it was just like, I don't know what you're doing, LeBron. If you want players to buy in on defense, you're going to have to buy in a little bit on defense too. And I think we're kind of seeing more and more that LeBron is realizing that he got himself into some trouble here with the Lakers because there's just not a lot of talent around him. Even compared to the Cavs. I mean, now the Cavs are the worst team in the NBA, but that core around him was better than what the Lakers are now.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. The Lakers, we've said this in the past too, but they're lazy on defense. They don't shoot the 3-ball well, and you just can't win with that. And you mentioned this too last week, but Ingram's been. We all thought Ingram would be better than what he is. He's been somewhat of a disappointment, and the Lakers themselves have just been a disappointment this whole year. But
Brandon Ingram's still pretty good at throwing punches. I mean, he's got that reach.
That's true. The length. But
I'm a
did
fan
like,
of. Yeah, I'll go. I'm a fan of what's going on in the NBA right now. It feels like it's 2011 again. We have Derrick Rose hitting shots. I don't know if you guys saw this picture on Instagram, but
oh yeah,
Tyson Chandler's playing big minutes in the fourth
crunch
quarter.
time, yeah.
Derrick Rose is putting up points, and LeBron's got the headband on from the Heat days.
Yeah.
So.
There's nothing like some throwback headband LeBron. But I'm actually not sure if you guys saw this, but it was LeBron's crunch time field goal percentages. So I think that's in the last 2 minutes of the game. And he's been atrocious in the last 2 minutes of all the games. I think he's shooting 65% from the free throw line, like 40% from the field, and sub 30 from three.
Wow.
Like he's been horrible in the last 2 minutes of all the games. And that could definitely be a reason to why they continue to lose. I guess they didn't lose last night, but you would hope LeBron could figure out a way to beat a Trae Young-led Hawks team.
Yeah. Yeah, you would think.
LeBron may not be seeing finals this year, but he's definitely seeing better than a 6 seed or something. And if they keep playing the way they're going to play, then they're going to get a 6 seed.
Yeah, I mean, but it all starts with LeBron. If he doesn't put forth that effort, his teammates aren't going to put forth that effort. So, I kind of put the blame on LeBron at this point, where, especially after seeing him play defense, he's got to work harder, play harder.
Okay, so moving on back to the Celtics. All of these rumors got shot down, but early on in the week, I did see it, and it does make sense.
Yeah.
And that's the Terry Rozier rumors. He could be going a couple different places, but I'm going to throw this first one to you, Greg, because obviously you're the Celtics fan. Are you cool with Terry Rozier going somewhere? And if you are, where do you think he would go?
Well, his contract is up at the end of the year, so I 100% don't expect Terry Rozier to be a Celtic come next season, just because if you looked at what he's done in the past, and the Celtics are going to be real tight with money after they re-sign Kyrie this offseason. So I don't expect Terry Rozier to be a Celtic next year. I don't think they will trade him, though, because for the Celtics to make a run in the postseason this year and then potentially match up against the Warriors in the finals, they're going to need every single player to step up, and you can't trade away your backup point guard in Terry Rozier, who has really been probably your second best bench player behind Marcus Morris, and you need to hold on to this guy if you want to take down Toronto and then even think about taking down Golden State. But if there was a Terry Rozier trade, I would see him going to a team like the Suns or the Magic. Both teams have awful point guard plays. And I think he's worth a first-round pick. Maybe not the Suns' first-round pick, which could be top 5, but he definitely is worth a first-round pick.
That'd be really frustrating if the Suns got another top 5 pick and just add to that really young core.
My God.
Like, could you imagine if you throw RJ Barrett in there now, just how unfair that would be?
That would be crazy. 5 years from now, oh my gosh.
Oh my.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If I would like Terry Rozier to be traded, I'd really like him to go to the Suns, especially that, Greg and I are planning on going to a Knicks Suns game later this year.
Yes, we are.
That'd be a lot of fun to see him playing point there.
That would be.
But, Terry Rozier, you can't trade him away, especially with Kyrie only playing like 60 games a year for the past few seasons.
True. You don't want Marcus Smart playing those big-time minutes, and you might have to rely on him to score. That's not a good thing.
Okay, so moving on. So this was the best thing that I saw this week in the NBA, and it was about 6 minutes into the game. It was the Spurs. I forget who they were playing now, but Pop pulled the entire starting 5 6 minutes in the game and just threw in a whole new fresh 5, just because it's just what a classic Pop thing does.
Yeah.
And that just kind of reminded me of the reasons that Kawhi wanted to leave, because that just has to be so frustrating if you're DeMar DeRozan, where, I mean, it's not like he was even having that bad of a first 6 minutes, but just to get pulled that quickly just is really frustrating.
It just goes on to prove that it's not DeMar's team, it's not LaMarcus Aldridge's team, it's Greg Popovich's team. And it just defines who the Spurs are.
Yeah.
Now this is something you like to see, Robbie.
Yes, it is. And
Current
that was
point guard and most clutch player on the Minnesota Timberwolves, Derrick Rose. hitting 7
Derrick Rose
threes, which
continues to impress.
oh yeah, 7 threes. That's a career high for him. Am I correct?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. And 2 for 3 in crunch time. Big game from him. Want to talk about
And
that?
if I'm not mistaken, I think that might be the most ever threes by a Timberwolf in a game too. Is Derrick Rose, which I thought was something interesting. And he really almost came down and won that game. He went 2 out of 3 in crunch time. He hit 2 big threes to tie the game, and then he missed the one when they were down 2 to finally lose it. But I mean, it was just it's insane to see him out there again, continuing to do and continuing to build off of what he did last week when he dropped 50 points. Because it'd be cool to see Derrick Rose not necessarily return to his MVP form, but just to continue to prove that he is a NBA caliber and starting NBA caliber point guard. Because it's just such a great thing to see every single week now.
Do you guys see him going to the Hall of Fame?
If he continues to do this and he plays for maybe 5-6 more years and continues to produce, he could definitely have a shot at it because he has the MVP and everyone remembers how amazing he was early on in his career.
MVP, Rookie of the Year. I'd say it would be hard to not give it to him. You know.
Now, what comes to my head when Derrick Rose is putting up these numbers is how frustrating it must be to be Karl Anthony Towns, because now that Jimmy Butler's traded, you see yourself as the franchise, face, and while Derrick Rose is helping them win, do you think Karl Anthony Towns is getting a little jealous that he's not the one doing it, and he hasn't been doing it for the past year?
That's a good point, because why did Jimmy Butler leave the Timberwolves? Because of Karl Anthony Towns and Andrew Wiggins. Now, when they traded Jimmy Butler, those 2 guys were supposed to be their guys now. They were the guys that are supposed to lead that team from now on. And watching Derrick Rose kind of, I guess, almost take over for Jimmy Butler by really taking over the scoring roles, which is the only thing that Karl Anthony Towns and Andrew Wiggins can do, by the way, is score the basketball. They can't do anything else. But watching Derrick Rose do this has got to hurt Towns and Wiggins in some way.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on from the NBA to the Chinese League, for anyone that didn't see this, legend, I'm going to call him a college legend, Jimmer Fredette dropped 75 points this past week. Did lose, but I think it was just kind of a crazy performance. I'm just kind of curious to hear how both you guys think if maybe an NBA comeback for Jimmer Fredette could be possible here in the near future.
I mean, I'm still surprised that he's not in the NBA. He's just really Kyle Korver 2.0. All he'll do is stretch out the defense and knock down open threes. He'd be a perfect fit on the Lakers. He'd be a perfect fit on really any team trying to win a championship. Especially, I would love to see him on the the Thunder, playing that 2 position, which the Thunder really haven't had a 2 guard in a long time. So I'm surprised he's not in the league.
This isn't a lone, this isn't a small sample size. What did he do against the Rockets during the preseason? I think that was 43 points. I'm not saying he's dropping
something crazy like that.
I'm saying he's not dropping over 30 every game, but he's shown that he can score.
That's for sure.
Yeah, he has. And I really do think the best place he could go, especially after the trade, is to the 76ers. Where now I think they have the defensive capabilities to kind of hide him on the defensive end just so he's able to kind of come off the bench just for some quick shots just to kind of come up, because I think that could really improve the team, especially now that they do lack the shooting depth. It could really be a decent piece to add where, I mean, if he's dropping 75 points in China and as you say, he's dropping 43 points in the preseason against the Rockets, there's no reason he shouldn't be in the NBA or at least have some kind of a chance.
And he is cheap. He would be very cheap.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Minimum, you could probably get him on a veteran's minimum or almost as cheap as they come. So, Philadelphia, hope you're listening to this. Want to get past the Raptors, get shooting.
Get Brett Brown on the line.
Yeah, exactly.
Alrighty. Well, Connor, do you have any last thoughts? Because that's really everything we had for now.
No, I'm all good. I think I said everything I wanted to say. Just thank you for having me on.
Awesome.
Oh, yeah.
We'd love to have you again, and have a good night, buddy.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah,
Bye.
Thank you.
Alrighty, Robbie. Kind of almost staying in the NBA, sorta here.
Sort of, yeah.
There's been a lot of talk about Cavs. Could the Duke Blue Devils take down the Cleveland Cavaliers? What are your thoughts?
Yeah. So this has been going around on all kinds of social media. People keep talking about it. It seems it's the next Browns Alabama debate, and I really don't think there's a lot of weight to it because, as we know, there's no way this would actually work. But I think that Duke keeps looking good, and the Cavs are pretty bad. So it does make sense that this argument is getting made.
Yeah.
But there's just no way that this could actually be a thing. Yes, they have the top 3 picks pretty much in the draft.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's just Zion is an elite talent, but it's just kind of frustrating to see that an argument like this makes its way back into the news because
there's
maybe it's just my Duke bias. But
no, there's just no way it could happen. Like there's no team. It doesn't matter if your whole starting lineup in college is going to go 1 through 5 in the NBA draft. There's just no way that a college team with a college coach, even though Coach K is fantastic.
Yes, he is.
There's just no way that a college team could ever take down an NBA team because if you look at it, the worst player on the Cleveland Cavaliers has made the NBA. There are probably 3, maybe 4 players on Duke that will make the NBA right now.
Yeah.
So
Tyus Jones' brother, I guess you could say, is the 4th. I forget his name right now.
Yeah, T.J. Jones. Shout out to him, but his career might be ruined now that he's about to be what's that point guard they got last year? Trevor Duval 2.0 right there. Yeah. Just too much talent, you don't get a chance. But yeah, there's just no argument that can be made for Duke to win this game.
Yeah, and then kind of just moving straight on to continue to talk about Duke. So we have a fresh NCAA basketball top 25, and I think the biggest news to come out of this is the fact that Duke jumped KU for the number 1 spot. And personally, I mean, obviously I'm going to have some bias about this, but I mean, I really don't think that was right.
Yeah.
Because as we saw, Kentucky is really not a good team. They almost lost to Southern Illinois University this past week. It's looking like one of the down years for Kentucky, so there's no way that win should really matter. And the only other game they played was against Army, where we played a Michigan State team that'll finish in the top 25 almost as a lock at this point. And I don't know. I didn't think that was necessary. And I'm kind of going to keep going here, Greg, but there's a lot of talk about Zion Williamson not necessarily being the next LeBron, but being an extremely unique talent. And I'm not trying to hate on Zion Williamson because he's extremely athletic. He's so big. He's so fast. But, I mean, the NBA is a whole different level. There's a reason they're NBA players. Like, it's one thing to be dunking on players on Army. You're getting 6 blocks against the entire Army team or a weak Kentucky team. I just really don't. Again, it's probably all bias for me, but I'm just still not on this Duke bandwagon. I think that they're overrated. They're overrated every year, and I'm just waiting for this to fall apart.
I mean, I agree. I think Zion, Cam Reddish, and R.J. Barrett are all going to be fantastic players in the NBA. All of them should come to the NBA, should be immediate starters, should be big-time playmakers for their team. But I do think people are jumping on the bandwagon a little too early, like you said. Because if you just look like it takes 5 men to win a basketball game. It takes 5 men on the court at once, plus a bench. And I don't know if Duke can play a long season and just consistently win on a night in night out basis. Like I don't know, like I do expect Duke to be probably a 1 seed come March, and I do expect them to make a run this year, but I just think the team's a little overhyped at the moment.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess that would come with that with him having the top three players coming out as freshmen. But I don't know. I'm just trying to let everyone know, can I just slow your roll on the
Yeah.
Duke Blue Devils? Because things like this have happened before, and
Yeah.
the best team doesn't necessarily always win in college basketball,
I agree.
a.k.a. The Kentucky Wildcats when
Every
they
year.
lost the perfect season in the
Yeah,
Final Four
Exactly.
to Wisconsin when they were trying to go perfect.
And let's just shut down the Zion LeBron comparisons right now, because what made LeBron
Yes, yeah,
such
please,
a
Steve
special
Kerr.
talent?
Steve Kerr.
Let me finish here, Rob. What made LeBron such a special talent going into the NBA as a high schooler? What made him so special?
It was playmaking. If you want me to,
his
it was
playmaking
playmaking.
ability.
If you want me to answer
He
that,
was
yeah.
a 6'9", probably came in the lead as a top 10 playmaker in the league as a 18-year-old. Like, that's what made him so special, was his ability at 6'9" to have such a unique playmaking capability. And Zion, he is one of the most athletic players we have ever seen, but he's not LeBron.
Yeah. No, he's not LeBron, and I mean, he really could never be LeBron because I think he lacks the basketball IQ to get it done. Because I have seen some commitment on his end to try to improve his game because he has a better jumper than I thought he would, but I just really don't see him being anywhere. Well, it's pretty hard to say LeBron because I mean he's a. I'm not
Second
even
worst
a debate,
player
but
of all time at
he's
the
a top
worst.
two.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
he's a top two player of all time. But I mean, just kind of moving on from the NCAA and straight into the NFL, we had a full entire week
Ooh, we did.
of NFL action.
Crazy
and
stuff.
I'm going to start with the story that happened before Sunday, and that was the entire Dez Bryant saga with the New Orleans Saints. So Dez Bryant gets signed by the Saints, gets all this hype around him, tears his Achilles, and now is out for the entire season. I don't know. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this, Greg.
Okay.
If you're Dez Bryant, do you consider trying another comeback at the NFL?
I don't know. I really don't know, Robbie, because it took you 10 weeks into the season to get a chance with one team. 10 weeks to get a chance with one out of 32 teams, and you tear your ACL, which is going to be at least a year.
It was the Achilles.
Achilles,
Sorry,
my bad.
Just to clarify.
Yeah. But it's at least a year for that recovery. Maybe a little less, maybe a little longer. You never know. So he's not going to be ready come the off season, and I don't know if any teams want to take a chance on an older receiver who's coming off an injury like that. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean it's tough to say because he's kind of getting on the older side of things now, but I mean kind of just moving on, not past Dez Bryant, but to the Saints still would be the fact that they signed Brandon Marshall now, which I mean he's going to fit the same exact role that Dez Bryant did as he got cut by the Seahawks. I think he's going to be fine in that setup. It's just kind of weird to see now them move on from one past his prime receiver to another. But I mean, I guess it makes sense if you're looking for some kind of playmaker.
I agree. The Saints are just trying to get really as much talent as they can on their roster to just make a run at the Super Bowl. So, I mean, I agree with the move. They have been a little thin at receiver, despite the play of Michael Thomas, and Alvin Kamara's been fantastic out of the backfield. Ben Watson's been great as well. But they have been thin at the receiver position, so they're just trying to strengthen that a little bit. So, I mean, it was a good move. I like the Dez signing. Hate to see him go down.
Yeah.
And then I like
it is hard to see.
You might as well go after a guy like Brandon Marshall. He's a competitor. He wants to win, and he's never won. I don't think he's won in a Super Bowl yet, so he's really going to do whatever it takes to win. If that means he's going to sit on the bench the entire game, he'll probably sit on the bench the entire game. If the Saints want him to go in and catch 10 balls, he'll happily do that. So, good signing by the Saints.
Yeah, and then I guess still sticking with the Saints, you had an interesting take on Drew Brees and his standing in the MVP conversation. I'm going to let you just take it because I have some thoughts on it too.
All right. The Drew Brees should be the unanimous MVP at this point. Shout out to Patrick Mahomes. You're playing fantastic. You're carrying my fantasy team week in and week out. I love you. You're the next GOAT. But Drew Brees is the unanimous MVP. And let me just start by pointing out, through the first, 10 weeks so far, they played 10 games. Drew Brees has had the highest passer rating in NFL history. NFL history.
Oh, my.
At 123.8. This is single season. That is the highest in NFL history by
That's
over
crazy.
a point. And his touchdown to interception ratio is an insane 21-1 at this point. And he's completing 77% of his passes. We've just never seen a quarterback play this well and play this efficient. If we look at the 3 best seasons statistically by NFL quarterbacks, we have number 1, Aaron Rodgers in 2011. He had a 45-6 touchdown ratio. He completed 68% of his passes. And he had a passer rating of 122.5. So fantastic, but if you just look at Drew's numbers, they're much better. And then I can bring in Peyton Manning from 2004, where he won the MVP, completed 67% of his passes, 49-10 touchdown ratio, to interception ratio, and 121.1 passer rating. So those are 2 of the best seasons we've ever seen from quarterbacks, but Drew Brees is even better. So unanimous MVP, Drew Brees.
Those are amazing numbers, Greg, and it's hard to argue with the fact that he won't win the MVP. But the unanimous part is what gets me, because yes, you have Patrick Mahomes, but there's a whole other player that you didn't even mention, and that's Todd Gurley.
He hooped this
Todd Gurley
weekend,
has scored a
too.
touchdown in every single game so far this season, and I believe he's on pace with the LaDainian Tomlinson 2006 run that he had,
I think so.
absolutely dominated the entire season. So we've had some crazy offensive performances this year, and it's hard to just say unanimously Drew Brees. Yes, the numbers are amazing, but I think guys like Patrick Mahomes and Todd Gurley would still get votes.
We'll see. Both, like you said, they are having crazy seasons, but numbers don't lie. And the fact that they're 8-1, 9-1, and they've taken down pretty much all the top teams in the NFC, that just doesn't lie. So Drew Brees, unanimous MVP.
All right. We will
Rob,
see what happens, Greg. We will see.
Staying in the NFC South, I have a question for you. Okay?
Okay.
This past Thursday night, we saw the Carolina Panthers get blown out by the Pittsburgh Steelers. Cam Newton has played fantastic the entire season. A few weeks ago on our show, we had Derek come on, and he mentioned just how well Cam Newton's been playing. Just he's not been turning over the ball, and he's been putting up great numbers. But can you rely on Cam Newton to win you big games, especially down the stretch and then come playoff time?
Down the stretch in the regular season, I'm going to say yes, because we've seen him do it before. I believe that season, did they go, I forget their exact record, but they were amazing down the stretch. They were the number 1 team in the NFC, and they made it to the Super Bowl.
The 15-1
However,
season,
it was 15-1, and it's kind of a worse defense, which is I think part of it. But if you're going to rely just talking about Cam Newton, I think that he can win you big games, but not the big game, because this is what the one thing that I took away from that Super Bowl, the Super Bowl loss that the Panthers had against the Broncos, was that on a fumbled snap, the ball was kind of. He fumbled the snap. The ball was kind of around on the ground, and instead of him diving at the ball and getting it and keeping possession, he kind of jumped back, didn't make a play at it, and it just kind of, it was like, I don't know, Cam. There's no other point in your career where you're supposed to be diving at the ball than in the Super Bowl early in the game like that. Like, you need the ball, and I don't know. I think that he can win big games, but as I said, I don't think he can win the big game.
I agree. It's a good point. Shout out to the Steelers, though. I think they are back, and they are a legit threat in the AFC. Their defense has looked fantastic the last few weeks, and it all starts with the guys they have up front putting pressure on the quarterback, especially the brother of J.J. Watt, T.J. Watt. He's playing great, putting up great numbers, and really leading that defense now that Ryan Shazier has been gone for the past year, obviously, but he's really stepped up and took over leadership on their defense, and their secondary's is a lot better than it was at the start of the year. Their defense is playing great as a unit, and I think they're a legit threat now.
I mean, I guess you could say that. To me, the AFC is still kind of wide open, so I do agree with some of the things you said. I think there are better teams that are in the AFC. Obviously, the Patriots, the Chiefs, just to name a couple.
You can't leave out the Chargers either at this point.
You can't leave the Chargers out. Just speaking of the Chargers have now won 6 straight games somehow, and they've had a couple of injuries, and if I'm not mistaken, I believe their leading receiver might be Melvin Gordon, or at least close to it. So when you have Melvin Gordon producing the way he is, it's definitely just a testament to how effective that offense has been over the past 6 weeks.
Yeah.
But sticking with another running back on the Steelers, we've learned that Le'Veon Bell is just done. And he's just going to go into the offseason and try and make as much money as he can. And I've heard rumors that he's eyeing quarterback-level money, which would be crazy to give a running back, especially after he sat out the whole season. I couldn't imagine a running back getting paid, $25 million a year? That'd be madness. So
I mean, it's just something you can't do, because the running back position, you can never replace a guy like Le'Veon Bell, despite James Conner playing amazing this year. Le'Veon Bell is a once-in-a-generation talent because of his ability not only to be such a threat running the football, but he can also line up in the slot, and he is such a threat in the passing game. And he's, like I said, we really haven't seen a talent that can run the football like he can and then go play receiver and beat DBs like he can. But you can't give a running back quarterback money just because of how injury prone the running back position is. And
he's getting up there in age.
Exactly. And like I said, James Conner has played great where, we do miss Le'Veon in the passing game on 3rd and short. We could really use a guy who can come out of the backfield like he can, a guy who can line up in the slot like he can. But is Le'Veon Bell really worth $25 million compared to what you're seeing from James Conner?
Well, I mean, obviously the Steelers won't be the ones that give him that money. It'll be a team that's just sitting on way too much money and is down for it. And I believe the Le'Veon Bell argument is that he gets as many receptions as a receiver and runs the ball as many times as a running back, so he should get paid a number 3 receiver and a number 1 running back. I mean, I guess it makes sense to combine the two. It is a lot of touches, but he's still getting up there in age, and it's tough to give out big money to running backs.
Exactly.
It's hard to see him getting it, but maybe there's a market for it, and he secures the money that he's been looking for this entire time.
We'll see. I could see a team like the San Francisco 49ers to just throw him a huge contract just because they need to give Jimmy Garoppolo some help, but I don't know if we're going to see him earn that quarterback-type money. But we'll have to see come this offseason.
I will say it now, though, if he gets a deal like this, it will be the biggest running back deal in NFL history by far.
Because Todd Gurley's – is he the number 1 paid running back in NFL history right now? Todd Gurley?
I'm unsure who the top paid running back in NFL history is.
I think he signed a big contract, but I don't know. We could bring that up next week.
Yeah.
But yeah, it would definitely be a shock to see him make quarterback-type money, and I don't think it'll happen. But moving on.
I don't think so either.
Moving on straight here. We saw your Bears play yet another good game. Trubisky looked great. But how about that defense and the amount of turnovers they're producing week in and week out?
So currently right now, the Chicago Bears are number 1 in the NFL in takeaways and number 1 in points off turnovers. And that is the reason that we are first in the NFC North. We will see this upcoming weekend who the actual best team is in the NFC North when the Bears and the Vikings play in prime time. Everybody be watching that game. It's going to be huge. We're going to see if Mitchell Trubisky can step up again like he already has. But the defense just continues to look great. Khalil Mack was back, and for those of you that missed it, he just bulldozed the left tackle on the Lions and jumped on Matthew Stafford. It was just a Khalil Mack type play, and that's what we've been missing in the past couple weeks, and it just makes the defense that much better. Where I think right now, I don't think there's a better unit in the entire NFL. It's the Ravens have looked spotty, the Jags have been out for a long time, and the Rams can't really get it done as well as they used to.
Just from a consistency standpoint, there's no team that's better. There's no defense that's better at this point. They do have some holes in that secondary, but there is still no defense that has played better week in and week out.
And the pass rush kind of eliminates some of those holes, but our corners haven't stepping up huge. Bryce Callahan, shout out Bryce Callahan, has just been playing fantastic the past couple of weeks as our slot corner. He's just really been good. But moving on, well, actually, staying with the same team, this was one of the craziest things that I saw in the NFL this week, and that was the Bears kicker Cody Parkey hit the upright 4 times. I don't even know how that's possible. Like, it's way harder to hit the upright than it is to kick a field goal. I don't know how he hits it 4 times. And it wasn't like he scraped it. He donked it off the upright 4 times. Wow. 2 PATs and 2 field goals. And what Matt Nagy said is that they're not looking to cut him, but I mean you'd be dumb to not be looking at other kicking options at this point because that's I don't even know how that's possible to hit the upright 4 times in a game. It just doesn't make any sense.
You don't want to be in the playoffs and then have your kicker pull a Blair Walsh there and miss a 25-yarder to win the game.
And then his career just completely ends because he doesn't know how to kick anymore.
Well, then the Seahawks signed you because you did such a good thing for him. But moving on though to another surprising thing. It hurts to say this. It hurt even more to watch this. The New England Patriots getting blown out in Tennessee by 24 points to Marcus Mariota. Surprised with how well Mariota played for starters. He's been playing very well the last few weeks. Their defense, shout out to them. They've been the best scoring defense in the league. A lot of that has had to do with their offense is so bad that teams consistently run the ball against them, but it doesn't take away from anything they do. They played in a lot of close games, and they've won a lot of close games because of that defense. And finally, Marcus Mariota in that offense stepped up. Shout out to Corey Davis for mossing Stephon Gilmore a few times, and he played a great game. But yeah, it's a complete shocker there in Tennessee this week.
But what's going on with Bill Belichick continuing to lose to his, I guess they're his ex-players now, but it was like he also lost to Matt Patricia. Like, does he have a problem with players that were on his team before?
I don't know.
I don't know. He just continues to lose.
You never know. But Mike Vrabel, coach of the Titans, he can hit you with a lot of things. I mean, like we saw when he played for the Patriots, he'll do his main role, but then he'll surprise you like he did in the Super Bowl and catch a touchdown. But he'll surprise you with those trick plays, with some blitzes. So shout out to him.
Yeah, it was just shocking to see because there was really nobody who thought the Titans could go ahead and win 2 in a row like that. Yeah.
But moving straight on.
They did.
How about what happened? The Rams, they almost lost to the Seahawks, but they came out on top. But even though they won that game, they might have suffered a huge loss in that game. That was Cooper Kupp.
That is true. Yeah, that is true. So today Cooper Kupp was diagnosed with an ACL tear. He'll be out for the season, obviously. And that really, they still have good receivers in Robert Woods and Brandon Cooks, but Cooper Kupp was one of the reasons that offense worked because he's there on the short routes, the out routes, and he's because Brandon Cooks is the guy who's able to burn players downfield, and Robert Woods is kind of your bigger receiver who's able to sit about 15 yards downfield and just kind of use his size. But it's going to be a tough blow for the Rams to lose a guy like Cooper Kupp, especially all the fantasy owners who had Cooper Kupp too because he was having a monstrous year, at least early on.
Agreed, yeah.
But, yeah. So, moving on to one of the coolest things that I saw, I guess it'd be the coolest thing I saw, was Baker Mayfield in his post-game interview after beating the Atlanta Falcons. And that was one, he said he woke up today feeling dangerous. And I just thought that was a great quote, because after you go out there, you dominate the game like he did. I forget his exact numbers right now, but he was almost flawless. I think his quarterback rating was near flawless or flawless. And it was kind of something cool to see out of a rookie quarterback like that, who's able to come in, step up, and dominate against a pretty good team in the Atlanta Falcons, who it looked like would be able to win this game and stay right in the conversation for the playoffs. But now it's kind of iffy to see if they really have a shot because the NFC South is just so good.
Yeah, shout out to him. Shout out to Nick Chubb, too. We saw him play a great game, 20 rushes for 176 and a touchdown. That's 8.8 yards a carry. That Falcons defense...
hold on. There was one 92-yard run, though. I mean, obviously, that's going to boost all your stats when you break one like that.
But that's still like 19 for 90 there. That's still a good game.
Yeah, you're right. You are right.
But that Falcons defense, it is shaken up. It is injured. Haven't played well this year. But that doesn't take away really from anything that Baker Mayfield did. And we really saw how dangerous he can be if he has a good run game. If the Cleveland Browns can get Nick Chubb going like they did this week, the Cleveland Browns could be a very good team going forward. I'm not saying a playoff team. No way they make the playoffs. But I still see them being really a relevant team if they can get a run game.
Really, yeah, and they're only a couple years away, too, the Cleveland Browns, where they could really start making some noise here soon because that defense is only going to improve as well.
And they played a great game against a great offense,
He's been playing great so far this year,
16 points to Matt Ryan and Julio Jones and all the guys they have over there. So shout out to
Calvin Ridley, Mohamed Sanu, Tevin Coleman. There's so many guys on that offense.
Exactly.
Yeah, all right, so with that, this is going to be a new segment that we're trying to introduce, and that's going to be our fantasy winners and fantasy losers. So a lot of things that you guys have been telling us is to try and get a fantasy segment involved, and so this is how we're going to start it. We're also going to do a couple other things that I'll get to later, but with that, I'm going to go with probably the biggest winner of the week, and that had to be Zach Ertz. On that Sunday night game, I believe he had 14 receptions, 120 yards. It was madness that he had in that game.
He played great.
I believe he had something like 40 fantasy points. So Zach Ertz, if you had Zach Ertz, you probably won this week because he was great, just tearing up the Dallas secondary. Do you have any other fantasy winners there, Greg?
A big win for Christian McCaffrey owners. 3 touchdowns. Yep. This is his 3rd straight multi-touchdown game. First guy to do that since Steve Smith a few years ago. So shout out to him and shout out to the Christian McCaffrey owners, especially if you're in a PPR. It might be a top 5 running back going forward.
No, I believe he is a top 5 running back at this point, just due to his touchdowns. And, he catches the ball so often out of the backfield. But another one of my winners, I started him this week on one of my fantasy teams, and helped me come in with a big win. And hopefully he wasn't on your bench, but that was Mitchell Trubisky. Mitchell Trubisky was amazing this week. He had 4 total touchdowns. I think he had something like 380 around there total yards. He looked like an actual pocket passer. I think I think Mitchell Trubisky could actually be a legitimate fantasy quarterback at this point moving forward, especially at home. When he's playing at home, he's a different quarterback, and he's able to throw touchdowns. And he showed it last week. I believe he had 38 points in my league. It's probably something around there in yours. So definitely look for maybe not a start against this Vikings defense, but coming up here in the next couple of weeks, he has a couple of favorable matchups, specifically the Giants. Yeah. When he plays the Giants, I'm going to say start Mitchell Trubisky that week.
I would really start Mitchell Trubisky every game he plays at home from here on out.
Yeah.
He's been great at home.
All right, and then a couple of losers in the fantasy world. This is a guy that, again, personally just continues to hurt me, and that's been T.Y. Hilton. He either finds the end zone and then disappears the rest of the game, or he gets 4 receptions for like 50 yards and then doesn't do anything else. Where that's just so frustrating to have because he was drafted as a wide receiver too, pretty much, and he's just really not stepped up in any way, because especially with Andrew Luck throwing the ball as well as he is, throwing as many touchdowns as he is, Eric Ebron just eating all of his points. I think Eric Ebron had 3 total touchdowns last week. I guess he'd be another fantasy winner. Great. Would be Eric Ebron, because he ran one in randomly out of there.
He did. Nice little jet sweep.
But T.Y. Hilton continues to disappoint. Yeah, that's what it was. But T.Y. Hilton continues to disappoint me, and I guess all the other owners of T.Y. Hilton out there.
Yeah, but moving on to the New England Patriots in their backfield, Sony Michel and James White might have been the best running back duo at the start of the season. Sony Michel did come back from an injury, but he didn't play well. James White didn't play well. A big part of that
I think they combined for around 10 points.
Yeah, I think so. Just around 10 because I own James White in one of my leagues. But a lot of that has to do with how well the Titans' defense and how good their game plan was coming in to stop James White, who really has been the game changer for the Patriots offense the whole year.
Yeah, he really has been.
Yeah. And next is a guy that I actually picked up or traded for in pretty much every single one of my leagues. He went out and he balled out last week with 2 touchdowns. But O.J. Howard, rough week, 1 catch for 15 yards or 16 yards, something like that. Rough weekend from him.
Also the fact that Ryan Fitzpatrick threw for 400 yards and none of that went to O.J. Howard.
Yep.
Like, Tampa had a horrible week and couldn't really find the end zone, but you think if your quarterback throws for 400 yards, your tight end might have some kind of a role in that, especially after the big games he's been having.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely a big L to O.J. Howard owners this week because that does suck.
And lastly,
and then,
it's been a tough
year. This
year.
has to be the biggest L. Yeah,
It's
the
been
biggest L of the entire season.
For sure. It's been a tough year for all you Le'Veon Bell owners, but it's officially over. You're not getting probably the number 2 overall pick for in most drafts, but you're not getting him at all this season. So it's been a tough year, and it's only going to get worse from here. So sorry to you guys.
Yeah, sorry to all Le'Veon Bell owners. Should have picked Saquon when you had the chance.
Facts. But to everyone listening to this podcast, I have kind of I have something I want from you guys. I think I have created the greatest fantasy football team ever. And I will name this team in a sec. But my goal is for you guys to prove me wrong. If you have a team that is better than this, if you own it, if your friend owns it, take a picture or write up the lineup, tweet it to us, Robbie, at what's the address?
So the Twitter handle is at Tuesday Takes. So far we just have the episodes on there, but you start to see some more activity. I'm gonna say it's gonna be worth the follow because we're hoping for some pretty good content to come out of it, and obviously the episodes will be posted there. As we are continuing to be on SoundCloud, and this week we're gonna try and make the move to YouTube as well. So you can find all the links there. It's just gonna make things easier for all of you. And if you don't have a Twitter, please continue to listen to us on SoundCloud as you have been. But yeah, so if you have a team that you think is good, please send it to us. And Greg, I'm going to say it right now. I already think I have a team that's better than yours.
Really?
Because my team's legit, yeah. Quarterback, Mitchell Trubisky.
Okay.
Running back, Saquon Barkley. Mm-hmm. Other running back, it was Sony Michel. He's obviously been out, and I had LaShawn McCoy last week who balled out. And then my receivers, it's 2 receivers on the flex, but I used 3 receivers. It's Adam Thielen, Tyreek Hill, Emmanuel Sanders, and I have Josh Gordon to throw in there too, and my tight end's George Kittle.
Wow.
I have an elite unit. I am now 8-2. I'm pretty much untouchable. So I mean, if you have a team that's better than that one too, please send it out.
Okay.
Because we're always looking for teams that we can try and beat.
Okay, so this team that I'm having is averaging 165 points a week in standard PPR scoring, point per reception, no yard bonuses, no nothing. But at the quarterback position, number 1 ranked quarterback, Patrick Mahomes.
All right.
My running backs.
You got Patty.
My running backs, I have number 2 ranked Alvin Kamara, number 8 ranked Christian McCaffrey, number 6 ranked James White, and then number 17 ranked Joe Mixon on my bench, which I can't trade for. Everyone in my league who's listening to this, except the trades I'm sending you, it's like Allen Robinson and Joe Mixon for like Mike Evans or AJ Green, and nobody's accepted of it. But moving on to my receivers, number 3 ranked Michael Thomas, and then like I said, I got Allen Robinson bringing up to number 2 position. My tight end, Travis Kelce, number 1 ranked overall tight end. My defense, I've been rolling with the Rams or whoever the better option is on waivers. But this is the best team I've ever made, and it's the best team I've ever seen. I also have an O.J. Howard stashed on my bench. So prove me wrong, though. Tweet us your team or your friend's team.
Send us your teams. And then also say how many players are in that league. Is if it's an 8, 10, 12. Yeah. If you're in a 14-man league, I guess good for you for trying to win. But yeah.
Yeah, this is a 10-man league, by the way, this team. None of that 8-man league stuff. Probably better than your 8-man league team. But this is a 10-man league.
Mine is 10 as well. I think most leagues are 10 to 12. But yeah, please send them to us because we'd love to see what you guys have.
And then next week we'll give a shout out to the best team that we can find.
Yeah. Yeah, we definitely will. All right, so with that, I think we're going to try and wrap this up, Greg. We're going to wrap it up with just some really quick college playoff predictions.
Okay.
So I just want to hear your 4.
Okay.
Just rattle them off, and then I'll give my 4. And then I think we'll pretty much just wrap it up.
I think so, yeah. But starting with number 1, this is a team that's going to win it all, go undefeated, win the national championship game, Alabama. Number 2, I got Clemson. Number 3, I hate to say this, but the best team they've played is a Michigan team that wasn't the same week 1. But I got Notre Dame coming in at number 3 because the second best team you've played all year is NC State. Number 4, this might be surprising. Number 4, but I have West Virginia, and a big part of that is Michigan State travels to Columbia, and I think it's the 28th, and I got them catching the L to Ohio State. Georgia travels to Alabama in a few weeks, or they play Alabama. I think it's a home game, but there's no way they're getting through Alabama. And then the big matchup is Oklahoma versus West Virginia. Winner of that game is going to be the 4 seed that makes it in, and I have West Virginia topping Oklahoma. What do you got, Robbie?
All right, so my top 3 is exactly the same because they're obviously the 3 undefeated teams, Alabama, Clemson, and Notre Dame. And it's that 4 spot that's iffy. And right now, I think I'm going to have to agree with what the committee did. I think if Michigan is able to continue to win, and if they end up winning the Big Ten championship over Northwestern, there's no reason they should be kept out, especially if their only loss is to Notre Dame. And I think, given the chance again, Jim Harbaugh can figure out a way to beat Notre Dame if it comes down to it. Obviously, they're probably going to have to play Alabama, and that's going to be a tough game. And there's no way Notre Dame will beat Clemson. So, I mean, it can look like almost at this point that the national championship, we kind of already have it. But you have to play the games for a reason, and that number 4 spot is still wide open. There are so many shots at it. And I guess it's hard to say, but for the second year in a row, UCF still has not lost a game. They said they were the national champs last year. They're probably going to say they're the national champs again this year if they don't make it in. But they do continue to win. And if the thing is, though, if you're UCF and you think you're that good, maybe try and play someone who's better than, what are they, they're in the American Conference?
Yeah.
Let's find some teams that are better than those.
Florida Gulf Coast
University.
Yeah. Gotta
get
some.
FGCU.
Gotta get
Dunk
some
City.
competition.
Dunk City. What was that? 2014. But yeah. So those are our rankings now. And yeah. So please follow us on Twitter. Continue to listen, guys. And please continue to come on the show as well. We're always looking for new guests. And we'd love to have you guys on. But I think with that, Greg, this has been Tuesday Night Take.
Anything you want us to talk about or anything you want us to mention, Twitter's a great way to contact us. So definitely give us a follow there and let us know what you want us to talk about. We'd love some suggestions.
Most definitely. So with that, this has been Tuesday Night Takes, and we're signing off.